Just imagine, you're framed for a crime you didn't commit and sent to the world's most dangerous prison. The story begins in 1931 in Paris, where a clever man named Papillon lived. He was an expert at opening any lock. One day, after a robbery, Papillon handed the stolen diamonds to his boss. The boss suspiciously asked if Papillon had kept any diamonds for himself. Papillon denied it completely. But then, the boss showed him a man who was badly beaten and threatened Papillon, saying, "If you lie to me, you'll end up like this." Papillon said nothing. Later, he went to his girlfriend Nanette and gifted her a necklace made from the diamonds he had secretly kept. At that moment, a man saw the necklace in Nanette's hand secretly. Papillon and Nanette spent the night together, and she urged him to leave this life of crime. Papillon dreamed of building a small house far away with her. However, their dreams were crushed the next morning when the police raided their home. They accused Papillon of murdering the same man who was beaten by his boss. The police arrested him, and Papillon realized there was no use trying to explain himself. They wouldn't believe him. His only option was to escape from prison. In jail, Papillon met another prisoner named Julot. Julot told him, "You'll need a lot of money to escape from here." Then Julot pointed to another prisoner named Degas and said, "He can help you." Degas was a wealthy man, but had been caught making counterfeit money. Soon after, all the prisoners were transported to a place called the penal colony by boat. On the journey, Papillon approached Degas and said, "I can protect you in prison if you give me money." But Degas refused the offer. That night, a prisoner sleeping next to Degas was brutally murdered. The man had hidden money in his stomach, and someone killed him to steal it. This terrified Degas. The next morning, shaken by fear, Degas agreed to Papillon's offer. However, he was not interested in escaping because he believed his wife would eventually get him out legally. That night, the same killer who murdered the other prisoner came to kill Degas. Just as the man was about to strike, Papillon intervened and saved Degas' life, beating the attacker. However, the guards discovered the fight and punished Papillon harshly. The next morning, the prisoners arrived at the penal colony. Julot, desperate to escape, injured himself on purpose so he could be sent to the clinic, which had less security. He planned to escape from there. Meanwhile, the new prisoners were brought into the main jail, which was full of dangerous criminals. The warden there was equally ruthless. He told the new arrivals, "Escaping from here is impossible. Don't even try, it'll be better for your health." He warned them of the consequences. If you try to escape, you'll be sent to 2 years in the torture chamber. If you're caught a second time, it'll be 3 years. But if you try a third time, you'll be sent to Devil's Island, where everyone goes mad. If you commit murder, your head will be chopped off in front of everyone. The prisoners were given heavy labor jobs, such as lifting stones. After a few days, Papillon met a boatman who could help him escape. The boatman told Papillon to meet him by the riverside the following night. However, a dangerous prisoner overheard the plan and betrayed Degas for money. Papillon managed to handle the situation and saved himself. Degas saw everything and realized that without Papillon, he wouldn't survive even a day in this prison. Left with no other option, Degas decided to join Papillon in his escape plan. The next morning, all the prisoners were gathered in the field. It was revealed that Julot had killed 2 guards during his escape attempt. Within moments, Julot's head was severed from his body, and he was executed. Seeing this horrifying scene, all the prisoners were terrified. The warden then ordered Papillon and Degas to carry Julot's body to the crematorium. On the way, Degas suddenly started vomiting, as he had never seen a dead body before. Despite his discomfort, there was no relief for him. A guard approached and ordered Degas to lift the body, but when Degas refused, the guard began beating him brutally. Papillon could not bear to see his friend being tortured, so in a fit of rage, he picked up a stone and struck the guard on the head. After this, Papillon ran away, but poor Degas was paralyzed with fear and couldn't even move. Later that night, Papillon approached the boatman who had promised to help him escape. However, as Papillon requested the boat, the man suddenly burst into loud laughter. Papillon turned around and realized he had been surrounded by guards. It was then revealed that the boatman was secretly working for the warden, providing information about escape plans in exchange for money. Papillon was brought back to the prison, where the warden informed him that the guard he had hit with the stone had survived. Therefore, Papillon wouldn't face the death penalty. However, he was punished for his escape attempt and sentenced to time in the dreaded torture chamber on another island. In this chamber, Papillon was confined to a small, dark cell where he wasn't allowed to make any noise, not even talk to himself. If he broke this rule, he would face additional punishment. His meals consisted of a thin, nearly inedible soup, and the isolation was unbearable. One day, he unexpectedly found a coconut in his food. Inside the coconut was a piece of paper with a message saying he would continue to receive coconuts daily. Papillon quickly realized that these were being sent by Degas, who was secretly trying to help him. For a month, Papillon survived on the coconuts. However, the warden eventually discovered this. He demanded Papillon reveal who was sending him the coconuts, but Papillon refused to speak. Furious, the warden sentenced him to serve the remainder of his punishment in complete darkness. Now, Papillon was plunged into total isolation. He couldn't see anything around him, and the oppressive silence and hunger began to take a toll on his mind and body. Over time, his condition worsened. The loneliness and lack of food made him so weak that he could barely move. His mental health started deteriorating rapidly. Eventually, Papillon became so frail that he had to be transferred to the hospital for treatment. Coincidentally, Degas had earned the warden's trust over the past year and was now working within the jail. One day, Degas visited Papillon in the hospital and discovered something surprising. Papillon had been pretending to be mentally unstable. He knew that faking madness would eventually get him out of solitary confinement and back into the main prison. Once reunited, Papillon and Degas began planning another escape. This time, they decided to include 2 other prisoners in their plan. Papillon chose a strong prisoner named Cillier, while Degas selected Maturette, a timid prisoner who was often bullied by others. Degas gave all his money to Cillier, who used it to buy a boat. The following night, while the prisoners were being shown a movie, the 4 of them decided to execute their escape plan. As part of the plan, Degas approached the officers who were watching the movie and offered them alcohol. He had cleverly mixed a drug into the drinks and waited for the right moment to steal the key to the main door. Meanwhile, Papillon and the other 2, Cillier and Maturette, waited anxiously. Suddenly, it began raining, and the lights went out. Seeing the opportunity, Cillier suggested they run immediately. However, Papillon refused to leave without Degas. Just in time, Degas arrived with the keys. Taking advantage of the darkness, they unlocked the main door and escaped from the jail. While running, they reached the end of the path, and the only way forward was to jump down to the riverbank. Papillon, Cillier, and Maturette jumped without hesitation, but when Degas was about to jump, the lights suddenly came back on. Overwhelmed with fear, Degas lost his balance and fell, injuring himself badly. He couldn't walk anymore. Cillier insisted they leave Degas behind, but Papillon refused. With Maturette's help, they carried Degas to the riverbank, where the boat was waiting for them. Without wasting any time, all 4 got into the boat and disappeared into the darkness. After a few hours at sea, dawn broke, and Cillier realized they hadn't made much progress. He calculated that the boat was too small to carry the weight of all 4 of them, and to make matters worse, a fierce storm was approaching. With time running out, Cillier suddenly pushed Maturette into the sea. He then turned towards Degas, intending to do the same. However, Papillon intervened, and a brutal fight broke out between the 2. Cillier, being incredibly strong, nearly overpowered Papillon, but just as he was about to kill him, Degas mustered his strength and stabbed Cillier from behind, killing him. They threw Cillier's body into the sea and managed to pull Maturette back onto the boat. Moments later, the storm arrived, and the sea turned chaotic. Darkness surrounded them, and they lost control of the boat. When they regained consciousness, they found themselves on an unfamiliar island. Some locals had spotted them floating in the sea and saved their lives. A nun approached Papillon and informed him that they were in Colombia. Papillon immediately turned to Degas and suggested they leave the island as soon as possible to avoid being captured again. But Degas, exhausted from all the running and hardships, declared, "If you want to go, you can go. The deal is over." He had had enough of the endless escape attempts, and now wanted to settle down and live peacefully in one place. Papillon then went to Maturette to convince him to escape together, but Maturette had become infatuated with the women of the island and had no interest in leaving. Realizing that neither of his companions wanted to leave, Papillon decided to escape on his own. However, as he was preparing to leave, he suddenly spotted officers approaching. It became clear that the clever nun had betrayed them and informed the police. Papillon quickly ran back to warn Degas, but it was too late. The officers caught them both, and during the chaos, Maturette was captured and tragically shot dead. Papillon and Degas were sent back to prison. After 5 long years, Papillon had served his punishment in the torture cell and was transferred to the infamous Devil's Island. Upon his arrival, he was shocked to see Degas there as well. It turned out that the officers had discovered Degas' role in drugging them, and he had been sent to Devil's Island long before Papillon. The 2 friends were overjoyed to reunite after 5 years. That evening, as they sat by the seashore, Papillon shared his new plan with Degas. He proposed building a small raft using coconuts, believing that the ocean's waves could carry him to the other shore. But Degas was hesitant. He looked at Papillon and said, "Brother, do whatever you want, but leave me out of it." Degas explained that he had been living peacefully on the island for the last 5 years and had no desire to leave. His wife had remarried, and he no longer had anything to return to. Despite this, Degas still decided to help Papillon build the coconut raft. On the morning of the escape, the 2 friends hugged each other tightly and said their goodbyes. Papillon threw the raft into the sea, jumped onto it, and began his journey. By sheer luck, the plan worked, and the ocean waves carried him toward the distant shore. As Papillon drifted away, tears welled up in Dega's eyes as he watched his friend leave. And with that, Papillon's incredible journey came to a close. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. See you in the next one.